Hi everyone and welcome back to Story of the World Highlights. Today we'll be talking about chapter 39, which is the First Opium War. So let's get started. To begin, last time we were talking about China, we met the Emperor Qianlong. So at this point, he is still the emperor, though he is almost done being emperor. Now, during his last few years of being emperor, he had given special treatment to one army officer named Ho-Shen. Now, Ho-Shen, he was a corrupt liar. He would accept bribes from anyone who gave it to them. So he would accept bribes and do things secretly. And while everyone knew this, the king turned a blind eye, as if Ho-Shen could never do wrong. He even let Ho-Shen marry one of his daughters. Now, eventually, Qianlong did die, and when he died at the age 87, his son, Qing, became emperor. And so Qing, the moment he became emperor, had decided that Ho-Shen needed to go. So he said to him, either I will kill you or you can kill yourself. And he decided to kill himself. So that was the end of Ho-Shen. However, Ho-Shen had created a big legacy of corruption and bribery. Most Chinese officials at this time were accepting bribes. They were allowing things to slide and ignoring certain things that they should be paying attention to. And so it was very hard for Qing to fix these things. And also because there was so much gambling and smuggling and corruption, the treasury, the national treasury, which means all the money that the government has to fund things, was basically empty. So Qing could not accomplish very much during his reign. And when he died, his son, Tao Kung, became the next emperor. Now, Tao Kung showed up to, again, a completely empty treasury. There was no money to the government. But at the same time, there was lots of infrastructure problems, such as dikes, which hold up water so it doesn't flood different farmlands. Things like this were getting really old and needed to be repaired. But there was no money in the government to pay for these repair projects. So Tao Kung decided to take the money from the royal living expenses, such as food, and put it towards rebuilding these dikes because he knew that was a must. But another thing he knew is that the opium problem was becoming out of control, and he needed to fix that. To do that, he decided to appoint one of his most trustworthy and loyal officers, Lin Zexu, to be in charge of this issue. So Lin Zexu decided that he was going to be the one to help fix it all. So what did he do? Lin Zexu, he knew that there were some problems within the opium thing. He knew that first it was just super bad. There was corruption everywhere. He knew that pirates were smuggling it in across different borders. And he knew the British people were secretly selling it through merchant trades, but pretending that it was other stuff that they could normally sell. And he also noticed that the British were illegally selling in ports that were not allowed. Remember, all foreigners could only trade in Canton, but the British were secretly selling in other ports too. So he had a big problem on his hands to deal with. And he knew to fix this problem, he needed to sever the trunk from the roots, which is what he said, meaning he needed to get to the source and cut it off. And he went straight to Canton and he met with the merchants and he told the British merchants, here is my ultimatum. You need to give us all of your current opium supplies or you will no longer be allowed to trade in any Chinese port. And so the British merchants, not knowing what to do and knowing they were surrounded by Lin Zexu and his army, surrendered and gave up all of their 20 tons of opium. Now that started a 3-week process where Lin Zexu took all of the opium that he collected from the merchants and he had people breaking it up and putting it into the water, dumping it. and hoping that the water would dissolve it all and wash it out to sea. That process, though, took 3 weeks to dissolve all of that opium. Now, the British government, knowing that it lost so much profit right there, was very upset and decided that it was now wartime. And so they sent over hundreds of ships from India to Canton, and they started to attack. Now, remember, the British have the best ships in the world, and so anyone trying to beat the British at a naval battle is not going to win. And that was the case for the Chinese. The Chinese could not beat the British at sea, and so the British were able to capture Hong Kong and many other lands, and ultimately the Chinese had to surrender. They signed what was called the Treaty of Nanjing, and the Treaty of Nanjing meant that the Chinese had to pay $21 million in silver coins to the British government to pay for all of the opium it dumped in the sea. It also had to give Hong Kong to the British as a new colony for them. And they had to give access to 5 more ports. Now, remember, this is just the First Opium War. So at this point in the treaty, opium was not legalized. It was still very illegal. But this would be the first of many treaties that China would have to end up signing with the West, and a period which the Chinese called the unequal treaties. So this is the end of this chapter, and I'll see you next time for Story of the World Highlights. Bye-bye.